Now on ESPN8, The Ocho, bringing you the finest and seldom seen sports from around the globe since 1999. If it's almost a sport, we've got it here.
Welcome to another season of nonsense across the SGFFL, also known as the Bush League. I am your host, the Commish. Well, every 2 years we redraft our divisions, and this year would be that year where we would do just that. That time has approached us, and the lovely Jaylene Aguilera standing by. She'll draw those teams randomly in just 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. But first, we've got breaking news. One of the original members of the league, Scott Specker, will call this season, his 33rd season, his last. I called him on his mobile flip phone, and he shares why he's deciding to walk away.
I think this is it for me. I made the decision. I stick with it. I just tired of all the text messages, and it's not even football. Like Yankees out for the season, or some of the football ones complaining about the kicker scoring that's been in place for 25 years, 30 years. You think it's an emergency, and it's not even. It's just junk. It's like, yeah, I get more text messages in one day from this league than I do the entire season from the other leagues. Like, it's overbearing. I just want to get my shit and get home. Like, what the hell happened?
What the hell happened indeed? Well, Mr. Specker, we can't let you go off into the sunset without having some of the other originals wish you these farewell messages.
Hello, Scott. Just want to wish you a farewell season in this SGFFL league. It's been nice playing against you for the last 35 years. I remember drafting the first time in the school lunchroom with your Zubaz pants and a Freddy Krueger t-shirt. And who knows it lasts this long for everybody. I was going to mention thanks for all the wins you gave me this past years. Then I realized that you have more Super Bowl trophies than I do, so screw that. And good luck in the future. When you retire from your job and you have a cell phone that you can text at all day long, feel free to come back and join us again. See ya.
I, for one, am personally really sad to see Specker leave. I could always count on him for at least 1 to 2 wins every season. I know a lot of the other owners also depended on picking up some wins against his terrible teams. In fact, he gave up more wins in the modern era of the Scott Gross Fantasy Football League than any other coach. Over 320 losses to date and 6 last place finishes. So it is really heartbreaking to see someone like that depart from the league, especially after over 3 decades. And I mean, this guy fought from the bottom almost every year. It's really surprising to see him leave, especially after picking up a great keeper in Justin Jefferson, one of the premier receivers in the NFL, and he's a Minnesota Viking. You just know that this had to be Specker's wet dream to have a great Minnesota receiver as a keeper for his team. I'm just heartbroken to see him departing. Next time I'm back in Piers, Spec, let's grab a case of Natty Light and we'll go get hammered. Again, I'm really sad to see you leave, but love to see you walk away. Damn, that boy looks good in Zubaz.
And the goodbye would not be complete without bringing in one of Skippyville's biggest rivals, Donovan Diker, who over the years has amassed a winning percentage of over 70% against Scott Specker.
You know, picking up Jefferson in the draft, I think that kind of elevated his team here for a while. I mean, he hasn't classically been the best drafter in the league's history. You know, he's had his runs here and there, but it was nice to see him having some success. You know, Specker's a good guy. going back to the technology thing, he doesn't have the new up-to-date phones. And I think from what I've heard, it's, a pain for him to even get these text messages. Like I don't know if his phone's so damn old, he has to download text messages or what the deal is. But there's lots of times that those text messages start flowing and I honestly don't even read most of them. I just click on it so my alert goes away and I don't look at them, especially when I see Gabe or Jason's numbers. Yeah, it'll be nice for someone to have an opportunity at JJ.
Moving on, we redraw for the 4 divisions. The Cousins division has been renamed the McCarthy division this year. So let's now go to Jaylene Aguilera and Melissa Zaremba, who are standing by. Jaylene will randomly pull out 20 teams. The order they are pulled out also affects the schedule. So here we go. We start in alphabetical order, and the Culpeper division. Ken is team number 1, aka Uncle Rico.
Our second person is Brian.
Team 2 is Brian Stump.
Give it another mix here. Okay. Third person is Scott G.
Oh, that'd be me.
Ah, Scott Grouse!
Scott City is team 3. We have the Alaska connection with Scott and Ken. Kyle Stump is team number 4. We now have family ties
And
between Brian, Kyle, and Scott.
Drum roll.
Aaron New and the Red Devils make up team number 5, adding to another connection, the Pierce connection with Scott, Brian, and Kyle. Now, with the help of Melissa Zaremba, here are the first 5 teams pulled out in the order that make up the Culpeper division. Uncle Rico, Thumper, Scott City, Kane and Friends, and the Red Devils.
They're teams that have been up and down, but I think that's a division that if someone can draft strongly every year, I think you can probably control that division for the next couple of years.
Thank you, Don. On to the next 5 teams who will call the Kramer division home for the next 2 years. Let's send it back to Jaylene Aguilera, the 6th team pulled from the Criminals helmet.
Next we have Don.
Is Donovan Diker and his Big D's Dynasty.
Another mix here. Next is Bob.
Next is Bob Polkamp and the last of Swamp Dogs. Already the Kramer division is getting juicy.
And Trevor.
Trevor Gross is team 8, the TBG's BBDs. 2 more teams to go.
Next we have Gabe.
Gabe Stott, and oh man, this puts the cherry on top of the sundae already. Donovan and Gabe in the same division. Let the mudslinging begin. Final team, Ben Erickson and his Alaskan meat bat. Here's a quick recap. We have Donovan Diker, Bob Polkamp, Gabe Stott, Trevor Gross, and Ben Erickson. This division loaded with lots of characters, family ties, and intrigue. Mr. Diker, your thoughts on your Kramer division?
Yeah, that to me turned out to be a really fun division. Bob and I are pretty classically strong teams. Every time I see him on the schedule for myself, I'm like, son of a bitch, this is going to be a good one. Gabe is Gabe. Gabe has 1 good year and then 5 bad years. So you just hope you don't hit Gabe when he gets lucky and has a good year. So I missed Gabe in one of his good years, so he'll be no worries. But Bob is the big one for me when I look at the division. That's going to be him and I probably battling for the top in that one.
Explain to me why I always have to get stuck in Donovan's division. It's not about being stuck. I seem to split with him every year anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But a change of scenery would be nice once in a while. My God, it's constantly. I'm the best when I'm winning, and I have the worst luck ever when I'm losing, all the time. So I'll probably just go through the motions again this year and beat him one out of the 2 times, probably with my kicker, and I had to listen to him bitch about that. And how the kicker scoring sucks, even though he probably voted for it to stay the same anyways. All the crap. So somebody, 2 years from now, how about somebody else take him on for a change in terms of putting up all this garbage in his division and stuff. I'm done. I've had enough.
Now to the newly named McCarthy division. We send it back to Jaylene.
Next we have Brandon.
First team out is Brandon Mejia and his Silver and Black Lives Matter.
couple more here. Dan.
Brandon is followed by last year's champion Dan Wacker and his STDs.
Dawn. It was Dawn, you're right. Next, we have Brett.
Next is Bert, not Brett.
Some pretty standard generic names here.
I'm sure Bert Kimmin is used to being called other names. Robert, Bert, Bob, Brett's all the same.
And we have Jason.
Bert, followed by Jason Gross and Cone, Bone, Stones, and whatever that means. The final team in the McCarthy is...
Next we have Chris.
Chief Chris Jetton, the third Piers Healy High alum in the group. A recap of the McCarthy gives us Brandon Mejia. He's down in Tucson, Arizona. Dan Wacker in the Brainerd Lakes area. Bert Kimmin in southern Minnesota. Jason Gross in central Minnesota. Jason and Brandon had a great time in Vegas last year. And also Chris Jetton, who resides in Piers.
I would almost promise you by the end of the year, Jason and Dan will have traded away their first 5 rounds of the draft for next year, trying to be competitive, because that's just what those two do every year pretty much. I mean, that'll be a fun league, I think, just because you got the traders in that league. So you're going to have a lot of wheeling and dealing going on, but there's not really a powerhouse in that league either, or in that division. So it could be exciting to see who comes out on top on that one.
That leaves us with the final 5 teams that will make up the Tarkenton division. We know who they'll be, but we still must draw for scheduling purposes. For the final reveal, we go back to Jaylene. Austin Dickman and DOD, the first team into the division. He is the 16th team pulled out.
Next is Julius.
All right.
Okay, this one's unique.
Julius Gross is next. Mr. Fish. Austin and Julius's grandpas used to run a team together a few years back called East-West Connection.
It's in here. But next is Jake.
Jake Perkins is the third team to join them. Good old Snake Eyes. He also had the #1 overall pick this year.
It is Kurt. Sneaky Kurt.
Jaylene, you are correct. Kurt is a sneaky little devil. And that means Scott Specker, in his final season, is the last team drawn out. He'll be placed with Kurt Browsen, who gave him such a wonderful send-off earlier in the show. To Melissa, with a recap of our division, Austin Dickman, Julius Gross, Jake Perkins, Kurt Browsen, and Scott Specker.
That's actually a really good division. I mean, that's, there's some good drafts. Teams had some good drafts, and I don't know if Specker's team is going to be great this year, but he's got enough to be competitive, I think. I think it was Browsen that had a pretty nice draft, if I remember correctly. And then the other guys that that's kind of a group where, like you said, they're not necessarily always, in that top mix, but every once in a while they have a solid team. So I feel like that might be the toughest division of the group right there.
So there you have it. That's how the divisions were formed this year, and they'll stay intact next year. That'll do it for our show. Remember, coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll unveil the toilet bowl pairings. We'll also let you know what 4 teams earned a hard-fought division title and first-round bye. We'll also unveil what teams squeaked their way into the playoffs and which teams were left out into the cold. Also, a quick reminder that starting this year, you voted on this last year, it goes into effect this year, that you are allowed to make free agent transitions throughout the playoffs. So it's a dash to the finish. Can't wait to see who will emerge as this year's champion. Until next time, I'm the Commish, and this is the SGFFL.
Gotta go! You still recording? Hey, shut her down! Come back in a few hours.